All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Fitter and Faster TV. Appreciate everybody being here. Everyone's stuck in quarantine still, but hopefully we're learning and growing. These webinars have been a fantastic way to connect with people and learn from some of the best athletes and coaches. So we really appreciate everybody being here today. I'm going to introduce two special guests in a minute once we get our everybody joining the broadcast with us. My name is Brett Hawke. I am one of the directors of Fitter and Faster, and my pleasure to be with you guys today. We're going to be talking about goal setting and visualization, two very important aspects of performance, and hopefully soon we're going to be getting back into our training and slowly back into competing over the summer, hopefully. So this is a great time to actually be working on setting your goals for the future and visualizing those. And we're going to learn some skills today. So I'm going to introduce the first of our two guests. Today we have Ferrin. She swam at SMU in college. She now coaches for the Dallas Mustangs. And she's a regular Fitter and Faster clinician. So let's welcome Hannah to the show.
Hi, everyone. It's Hannah in Dallas. Yeah, I've been a clinician for Fitter Faster for almost a year now. It's been a really great experience so far, and I'm very happy that actually my first clinic was with Brett and Renzo, so it's perfect.
Yes, that's right. So that's why we've got you on the program today. You do a great job, so thank you. All right, so the second guest is Renzo Tjon-A-Joe. He is from Suriname. He's actually joining us live from Suriname right now. What's up, Renzo?
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Very happy I'm going to introduce you, Renzo. So you're a 2016 Olympian. You swam for Suriname at the Olympics. What did you finish in the 50 freestyle there?
I finished 21st place at the 2016 Olympics.
Nice.
Just missed the finals by a tenth of a second, like the semifinals.
Well, that's not going to happen at the next one because you're in training for the 2021 now Tokyo Olympics.
Certainly, for sure.
So we're going to take some jumps forward on that. So obviously you've been working hard on your goal setting and also your visualization. So you're going to help us with some of those skills today. So thank you.
Happy to be here.
Yes.
Quick question, Brett. Can you see me live?
Yeah.
Man.
My camera's frozen. Okay, that's fine.
No, you're looking perfect, man. Perfect sounding, perfect, looking good, as usual. Okay. So, Hannah, as a coach now for the Dallas Mustangs, what do you talk about with your kids in terms of goal setting, let's say?
With club kids, and because I also coach high schoolers as well, they want to make goals, but they don't actually know. Like if you ask, okay, what do you want to do? They tell you, but then you ask them, okay, well, what are your best times? They can't tell you.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like the backtracking part that I really try to get them to start on. They kind of have to know what they've already done in order to know where they want to go.
Okay.
And so knowing best times, knowing what kind of strengths and weaknesses they already have in order to progress forward. So it's kind of working from the very beginning before thinking about what do I want to do and how am I going to get there?
Okay, great. All right, we're going to go into specifics of goal setting in a minute. Renzo, I want to ask you in terms of visualization, when did you first start using it and do you think it's important for success?
Certainly. If we're talking about visualization, the first time I really saw it, at least for me, go into manifestation was at the 2013 Junior World Championships in Dubai. I had done some visualization exercises with my then coach. His name was Alexander Pucielli from Brazil. We were training up at David Nadadores at the time in South Florida. And his model was quite simply like, hey, I need you to visualize your entire race from the beginning to end, and also the time you want to do or want to swim at the end of the season. So visualization or goal setting starts primarily at the beginning of the season, when you're going into your rough training and things like that, and you want to really at least set, let's say your your big meet is in July or August, you want to start hitting some times that are relatively close to it, a couple months out.
Yeah.
That's why we usually have, trials or a tapered meet before. I'm in a unique situation in which, for Suriname, I'm one of the only swimmers of this caliber swimming at a world level that I don't really need to go to a qualifying meet. But obviously, for myself and my training partner Bruno Fradas, it's very important that obviously he needs to qualify for Brazil, and I kind of just piggyback off of that program. And just to see where you're at a couple of months out, say it's in April, in preparation for July, you want to start hitting certain times leading up to that meet. And you want to write those times down when you start the season, whether that's in September or in January. Down to the last 100th of a second, So.
Okay, good. And then you obviously start to visualize that stuff and see it in action. And we'll talk about visualization in more depth here in a minute. Hannah's put together a presentation for us that I want to start, and we can use this as some talking points for us. So let's have a look at this. All right.
I wanted to start with Mark Spitz just because I thought it was very appropriate.
It is appropriate. So why is this quote? Why do you like this quote?
I like it. It seems kind of like a negative way to look at preparation, but if you kind of just spin it in a positive term, he's telling you how to succeed is prepare. And so by its inverse, you know exactly how to do it. And he's telling you how to succeed is make sure that you do the work beforehand so you can get the end goal that you want. So I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and part of that preparation is obviously writing down your goals and figuring out where you want to go. So, and then we're going to talk about how to do those things. So let's have a look at the next slide here. I've made myself too big again. Let's go back. Where am I going to? All right. Oh, shoot. I'm not an expert at this. There we go. All right. Talk to us about this.
Okay, so you kind of have to, especially if you work with younger athletes or ones that are still trying to figure out the mental game of swimming, which I didn't realize really until probably a bit late in my career and even early coaching, that the mental component of swimming is very, very strong and can either kind of make or break a career, that your mind can be either an obstacle or a tool. It's just how you choose to use it. And so when I'm explaining goal setting, you kind of, especially with kids now, because I teach high school as well, they always want to know why. Always want to know why. So there's a couple different reasons. I mean, there's many different reasons why you want to goal set, but these are just a few kind of words of what the point is, that they provide direction. They give you bounds. They allow you to constantly reassess, like Renzo was talking about. You want to look at not just times that you want to go at the end of the season, it's times that you want to hit mid-season before you get there, and those stepping stones.
Yeah.
It gives you purpose, not just in the long term, but also in the short term in your training, and motivate you to do that. And then hopefully with all the combination of those purposes and those components, you reach your goals and hopefully even beyond.
Yeah. Nice. I like that. Renzo, you made the Olympics at what age?
I think it was 18 or 19 at the time.
19. Okay. 19. So when did you start swimming for the first time? When did you start training for the first time?
I started training quite early in Suriname. I was about 5-6 years old.
Okay.
Yeah,
and so there's probably about 15 years in there from the moment you started training to the moment you made the Olympics and swam at the Olympics. When did you first start realizing or using goal setting as part of your training and preparation?
You know, if you're very young and you're training in a country like Suriname, for those who don't know where Suriname is a small country in South America. We only have 500,000 people. We don't have any Olympic pools or top-notch facilities that many athletes in the US can utilize on a daily basis. It started honestly, a lot of it started with you, and it's very funny that later down in my career that I ended up swimming for you for quite some time. But I know when I know when I was just a swimmer, swimming just because it was fun, and then I knew that moment in which, and I can still vividly remember that moment in which I knew I wanted to pursue this as a career, and turn into a professional later downwards. And that happened for me. It was that moment during the 2008 Olympic Games. And back then I was just, I was probably around 10, 11 years old in Suriname.
Mm-hmm.
And I had seen Caesar win his gold medal for Brazil. And Brazil is, only south of Suriname, and throughout the entire Olympics, or at least throughout the Olympics, obviously Michael Phelps was dominating that year. There wasn't much representation of what it meant to be either a Caribbean athlete or a South American athlete or a top swimmer at that meet. The only person that really, shined from the Caribbean region and the South American region at that Olympics, at the ultimate level, was Cesar Cielo for me. So that was a tremendous wake up for me at that time, and I knew that did I want to, or did I want to be a successful swimmer later down in my life, I had to take things very seriously, and that's kind of where the small goal setting started for me. Like, hey, all right, so in the Caribbean we have the Carifta Championships. That's kind of something you can compare in the US to being close to the Junior Olympics, where all the top Caribbean athletes from various nations come together once a year to compete against each other. And that was kind of just like my big goal. That was my Olympics at the time. So every year I had a full year to work towards that point, to compete against, some of the top Caribbean athletes at the time. And most of you guys are, familiar with Dylan Carter, who was at that time my arch nemesis. By the time he was 13 years old, he had a six-pack coming out of his neck, and he was in a league of his own. So
much like myself, that's
much like you too, yeah. And I remember very vividly that every year I wanted to come back to these games or to the Carifta Games to try and beat Dylan. And that had only happened in my final year of the Carifta Games, because you can only compete up until you're about 17 or 18 years old. So, and that was in the 50 freestyle. So that's when I knew that, just putting a goal in your head or putting a certain vision of where you want to go and visualizing that win, you beating that person, your competitor, and letting it manifest throughout the year in your mind, and you working towards that specific goal, ends up delivering some pretty powerful results and pretty powerful, manifestations.
So it's almost like just daydreaming, but you have a very specific daydream in mind, like where you want to be and who you want to be. Yeah, that's interesting. I like that.
And visualization, Brett, stretches a bit further than just daydreaming about, that end result.
Yeah.
You kind of want to visualize everything that's going to happen that day. You want to visualize the crowd, the sound of the crowd. Yeah. You want to know what it'll feel like stepping on the block. You need to vividly feel the grip beneath your feet. Feel yourself entering that water, knowing exactly how many strokes you're going to take, and just counting on that, the bulk of the work that you've done throughout the season, and just believing.
So visualization is also a step-by-step run through, like a trial run of the day that you're going to compete. From the moment you wake up all the way through to the moment that you race.
Exactly.
It can be very, very specific. I like that. Okay, let's move on to the next slide here. All right, Hannah, talk to us about setting goals.
So yeah, you pretty much want to ask yourself 3 questions when you begin setting goals. Before you can visualize, you got to know where you want to go. So you have to know, okay, what have I already accomplished? What are my strengths? What are my points of improvement? All these different things in order to assess where you want to go and how you're going to do that. And so you have to figure out, okay, these are my times. This is, let's say, a 200 freestyle. This is my breathing pattern. I know that I can get better on my walls. I know that I can do a little less circle swimming or something like that. They don't have to necessarily, when you start making these goals, you start with the big picture and say, okay, I'm going to go this time. I want to make this meet. And in those high pressure situations, sometimes, especially when it comes to making trials and making Olympics and things like that, you have a very time specific high pressure goal to meet. You have to meet it then or it doesn't happen. And so that can create a lot of anxiety and stress. But then you go to kind of, after you know, all right, I want to make this meet, I want to go this time, things, then you say, okay, process goals. What am I going to do on a daily basis? What are things that I can control to lead me to success? And so those controllables, there's a lot of things that are really within an athlete's control. And it's just kind of it's being able to really commit and become habitual with those process goals, with those training goals, and just putting in the effort so you can get there. The success should follow as long as you've really made the commitment and followed through on what you've said you're going to do.
Yeah. And I think taking notes on those things too is important because, first of all, you have to write down where you've been and what you've done and how you got there. You know, it's important to know how many workouts you did per week for the season, how many, you know, maybe even how much yardage you did at a younger age, to kind of keep notes of like, all right, how much have I actually done, so that I know either I need to do more or less in the future. And these are the ways that I can sit down with my coach and figure out how to get there. But I like what you said. First of all, have an awareness of where you've come from and then where you want to go. And it's very similar to what Renzo was talking about in his visualization of getting to the next level. Is like he knew where he wanted to go with this as well, which is good.
I started thinking when Renzo was talking about when he started goal setting, and I started thinking about when I was a young swimmer and times before I started club, when things kind of got a little bit more high pressure. I was just in summer league swimming where a lot of kids end up starting. Well, actually, I had swim lessons in daycare. And when I was probably 3 or 4, and you start with like little goals, like I want to make it across the pool by myself. And then you get to summer league and it was like, I want to hold my breath for this entire 25. Then club swimming makes it very easy to set goals because they have motivational times that are set for you for each state. If you want to make it to tags, or you want to make it to sectionals, or you want to make it to juniors, nationals, all of those, you have those in front of you that kind of are reinforcing your goals and your habits. And so it gets, I think, hopefully more simplified as to the big picture and what you want out of your career, the quicker you kind of devote yourself to it. Because I just remember when I was probably 10, I was still playing basketball and swimming. Well, I'm 5'3", so I wasn't going to play basketball. And so that was kind of at that point where I needed to make a commitment and say, okay, swimming is where I'm going to go. My ultimate goal is to swim in college. So now what am I going to do? And so, yeah. Yeah.
Renzo, do you write down your goals?
I do. I usually, my goals are a bit time oriented, and once I'm going into that, once I'm going into a big meet, that for me disappears, because time at the highest level is somewhat relative, because at the end of the day, it only matters who gets their hand on the wall first. So that's kind of how my goal setting kind of goes throughout the season. It goes from very time oriented to, once we're getting down to business, I just want to get my hand on the wall first.
Okay. And there's a process in that as well.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. And to kind of just piggyback just kind of circle back on what I was saying with visualization. I remember very vividly at a young age, knowing, researching the internet, that I wanted to swim at Auburn University under Brad Hawke, and I wanted to train with Caesar and with Bruno and with Marcelo.
It's very common search on the internet, that one.
It is a very common search, or at least it was. Let's just say that.
It was.
and as I was doing that as a 12-year-old kid, right? 11, 12-year-old kid at the time in Suriname. I had no idea of how I was going to reach that level. All I knew that coming from a country like Suriname, I had to work 2 to 3 times as hard as opposed to kids in the US that have access to, many facilities, great coaching staffs and things built around them. So that mindset of wanting to train with the best and wanting to be one of the best and wanting to be in that group of top elite select athletes from a young point onwards, if that's really something that's embedded into your mind, it takes you to places. It might not take you as far as you want to go, but it'll take you further than you think it might. So
yeah, I like that. That's true. I like that. It'll take you further than you think. So that's great. Let's have a look at this next slide here, and we can keep talking.
So these are more about the controllables in your life, that your process goals, your short-term tasks to do daily in training, things you can control to ultimately reach your big picture goal, that time, that meet, things like that. And so I like this quote by Albert Einstein. I remember I think I found it like my freshman year in high school or something like that. And it basically just it says, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. And it's basically just saying, at least to me, it might mean something different to everybody else, but to me, it's not just going through the motions, it's putting purpose and making your actions meaningful to get to the goal that you want to do. You can say, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to sleep more, I'm going to try harder in practice, where those are sometimes we find ourselves going through the motions, especially in training. If we lose sight of our big picture for even a day, a week, or anything like that, y'all know with swimming, you're out of the water 3 days and that it feels different. And so just making sure what process goals that you make for yourself and you document, and that you're actually owning them, committing to them, and not just going through the motions, because that's when we tend to lose sight of our goal. And that's when we tend not to meet those goals, because we didn't truly commit. We didn't we didn't want it maybe enough for ourselves, because no matter how much your coach wants it for you, no matter how much your parent wants it for you, you have to want it for yourself. And you have to take ownership of that in order to really commit and get to where you want to go.
Yeah. You obviously like riddles. Between this one and the Mark Spitz one's it's like a riddle. I have to figure this quote out.
Everybody's different with what motivates them. People, phrases, times, whatever it is. I guess like phrases. But.
So give me, all right, I want to ask both of you, give me an example of a process goal, or in America you say process. In Australia we say process. It's just different ways of saying the same thing. So listen, give me, in America for you, Hannah, give me a process goal.
Process goal could be, okay, for example, when I got to college, at that point for a female, physically, you're matured, you've pretty much got all the tools that you're going to have. And it's about tweaking those tools to continue improving and getting better. And so for me, one specific process goal that I had was, I'm going to, for every single practice from now on, do 6 dolphin kicks off every wall.
Okay, great.
For freestyle, for backstroke, for butterfly. And I did not waver from it. And I also started breathing on to the side on butterfly my freshman year in college. So those are pretty significant changes. And I told myself, I'm going to do it every day. I'm going to breathe to the side. I'm going to do 6 dolphin kicks. My neck was sore for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But after that, you get used to it. And so it's just things like that. You can tell yourself, I want to make sure that I'm not gliding into my turns. I want to make sure that I'm doing a certain number of dolphin kicks, or even start really, as you got older, if you look at all of, I mean, you'll know this, but when you look at professional athletes and videos of their races, they pretty much take the exact same number of strokes every single length. It's all about consistency, and it's all about sticking to those movements. But they can apply for process goals. You can apply them to things out of the water as well. You can keep a food journal, like you guys were talking about earlier, with journaling your workouts, your distances. You can journal your food. You can journal your sleep hours. Say, I need to get more sleep, or this much amount of sleep. And I like what Renzo was talking about, was he wrote them down, and it's also really, really helpful and keeps you more accountable if not only you write down your goals, but you tell them to somebody else. And the more people that you can tell about your goals in big picture and short term, is increasing that likelihood that you're actually going to commit to it and do it.
Yeah, yeah. Renzo, talk us through some of your process goals.
I'm gonna just kind of keep mine as simple as possible.
Yeah.
And just from my recent memory.
Yeah.
So I'm currently, I'm currently in Suriname. Prior to this whole COVID-19 situation, I was training in Coral Springs with Bruno Frades and Michelle Leinhardt. And it was just the two of us, just Bruno and I in the water, and with Michelle as our coach. And I'll tell you something, it's a pretty hostile environment training with one of the best sprinters in the world. And I wouldn't say that I'd say the absolute top in the world, but I'm kind of at that sub-top level, I'd call it at the moment. I just need to get that little extra boost into that top 8. Yeah. But a goal that I have, that I had on a daily basis training with Bruno, is I just want to get my hand on the wall first during every sprint that we do, and even during warm-up. Right? Yeah. And I figure that if I beat this guy enough times in practice, that hopefully when we're going to be racing, when the lights are on at the highest level, the likelihood of me beating him will be exponentially higher than previously. So just getting used to competing with the top is something that has helped me transpire my career as just an amateur swimmer into the professional level, or into the professional league. And that also is very true when I was training at Auburn with you, Brett, in which, I thought I'm coming from, a pretty decent background of swimming, up until you meet someone like Marcelo Chirigini, who, is an absolute, tank when it comes to, racing the 100 free and even the 50 free. And in practice, he displayed such consistency over, the season and things like that. I really only used to be I'd probably have two to three really great practices a week.
Yeah.
Right. And most of that stemmed from, my lack of doing my homework in terms of nutrition, not sleeping enough, and things like that. But as you train with these professional athletes and these people that are at the elite level, and you don't even have to train with them, but just researching and figuring out their habits, the good habits they have in terms of how they eat and things like that. So it's a bunch of goals that you want to accomplish on a daily basis, from sleeping enough, from eating the right way, clean and healthy, from getting to practice with a positive attitude. When you're in practice, maintaining that attitude and being competitive, and some might say even aggressive, when you're racing and competing against your teammates, pushing your teammates, and obviously setting that example in the team or in the group that you're training with at the time. So that's kind of where I'd like to go with my active goals or processed goals.
Yeah, sure.
So
it's good.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of things in there. You know, swimming can be very mundane and repetitive, and it's much like living in quarantine sometimes. A little bit like Groundhog Day. You get up and you got to go through the same processes again. And so I think now is actually a great time to be training yourself for that real intense swim practice block that we have, because if you can get up during quarantine and eat right and sleep right and prepare your body and your mind, and then get a workout in and try and find ways to get better each day, if you can do that in quarantine, you can certainly translate that into your training when we come out of quarantine. So the people that are really doing it the best right now, I think, are going to translate very well into their training and getting better very, very fast. So I really appreciate you talking about that, Renzo, because it's very personal to you, but we all have situations where there's always someone better than you in practice. There's always somebody doing something better than you, whether it might not be just this particular one event. They might be better at you than turns. They might be better than you at underwaters. They might be just more consistent than you. Whatever it is, there's people in your practice groups that are better than you at something. And so there's always somebody to look at to say, I got to chase that person. I got to be better than that person today. And I think that's what you've done, is you've put yourself in a situation where there is somebody that is clearly better than you, and you're chasing them down and trying to find ways to get yourself in that mindset of beating them every day, so that when it comes time for the big race, you'll feel like you're very prepared to win that race, you know?
Certainly.
Yeah, I like it. All right, let's go to the next slide here. Okay.
So these are not like, every person's different. Every person's strengths are different. Every person's points of improvements are different. So your plan for success is not necessarily going to match your teammates or your lane mates. And so you have to kind of personalize this to yourself. But we've kind of gone through most of this. I mean, first you make your goals and then you commit to them, you own them. Awareness. So the reason I included that is because video analysis, I think, is incredibly important for athletes, because oftentimes when I'm talking to my swimmers and I'm like, did you know that you did that? They had no clue that they even performed that way, or they moved that way, or they breathed that many times, or things like that. And so video analysis is a very concrete way for people to see visually what is happening and being aware of what they're doing now and how they want to change it. Because oftentimes we are actually, well, we're pretty much aware of what we're doing, but there are sometimes very small things that we are not aware that we're doing. And maintaining that awareness and knowing what kind of swimmer am I now, and now that I see that, I want to commit to changing that. So anyway, that's kind of the awareness component of that. And then accountability, tell people, write it down, tell your coach, tell your parents, tell your teammates, probably super annoying, but it's more likely that you're going to do it. And then you just practice, not just in practice, not just in pace sets, but in mid-season meets, in any opportunity that you have to race, no matter if it's at the end of practice, a get out swim, whatever it is maintaining those process goals to get where you want to go. Apply it wherever or everywhere, and developing when you go through a race. And I tell my kids, when they get out of a race, if they are not cognizant of what they can improve, that's the biggest issue. If a swimmer and athlete knows exactly, they get out of a race, they get out of a competition, and they know, I need to do this better. As long as they know that and they can recognize that, that's learning, that's improvement, and that's progress. And so the next time you do it, you just have to, and I think it'd be really important and useful for athletes to, after a meet, after like either like if it's a several day meet, at the end of that day, at the end of the meet, be like, okay, these are my biggest points of improvement. Write them down, because we forget. And so that going into your training, so that next time you do that race, you can apply it and learn from it and progress, because doing something different for the first time is hard, but you do it over and over and over and over again and make it part of your lifestyle, make it part of your habits. That becomes your new normal. and more likely that you can go forward committing to those goals, doing their certain things with confidence. Because at first you're going to be a little hesitant, and then you're going to develop. The more you do it, the more confidently you're going to be able to do it, and faster and better quality, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Renzo, in terms of your own personal confidence, why do you think goal setting and visualization play a part in your confidence?
Well, I can tell you, when I was doing a poor job at visualization and what effect it had on my confidence. So I competed at my first World Championships in 2015, Senior World Championships. That was in Kazan, Russia. And to be honest, I knew I was going to the World Championships. It was my first time, going to compete there. I was with you at the time, but I would say that my visualization was only centered around the race, right? As I said, visualizing the crowd and visualizing, how I was going to swim and things like that. So I was very confident in myself up until I got to the ready room. And that's when I walked in there, and I had realized that I had never been in an environment or a space like that before, in which all of the best athletes in the world in the 50-meter free or the 100-meter free were in one room at the same time, right? And it has, I personally wasn't ready for that as yet, right? I hadn't seen it yet. I hadn't felt it yet. I didn't know what to expect or anything like that. So when you're there and you're looking, you're seeing men like either Bruno or the French, the Americans, the Australians, people that you grew up idolizing, right? And I was certainly intimidated. Let's just call it that, and that had thrown me completely off of my game, and I had a terrible World Championships, and leading into my next meets, as I grew older and a bit more mature within the sport, I could see that very vividly and incorporated that into my visualization process, and that in turn gave me tremendous confidence to compete, right? Because I already knew what to expect. Yeah.
Hannah, what about for you in terms of ready rooms? Is that what they call? What do they call it right before the race?
Ready room. That's what I call it.
Okay, so call room, ready room. So, what types of environments do the high school kids go into in terms of getting ready for their race, right before their race?
With high school, we don't really have ready rooms. You pretty much just get to the block. But with club, actually, I mean, it just, the more higher level you get to, the more kind of intense that ready room is. Yeah. And what Renzo was talking about, you walk in with full confidence, and then you walk into a room of people that you've looked up to your whole life, or that are technically faster than you right now. It's incredibly daunting and can be overwhelming. But with the ready rooms now, everybody's got, you were talking about earlier, swimming can be mundane. And when I think of swimming, I think of routine. Yeah. And we all have our routines. We all have them. Now, I'm not saying they're perfect, but that's what you have to try and learn over time, is how to tweak your routine to improve your confidence, to go into high pressure, not perfect situations and still be able to succeed.
Yeah.
And so everybody's got, you see in a ready room, some people listen to music, some people stretch, some people are talkers, and some people hate talkers in ready rooms.
Yeah.
It just really depends on what motivates you, whatever that is. It is not going to be the same for the person next to you. And that's the challenge, is figuring out yourself and your mental wellness and how to get through difficult circumstances or high pressure situations, still maintaining that confidence.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, let's go to the next slide. All right, might have to minimize this here a little bit. All right, talk to us about this, Hannah, real quick.
So I was thinking about, I was a classic overthinker when I was competing, and I see that in a lot of athletes now. You can see other thoughts running through their minds at all times. And so I kind of thought that brain fuzz was pretty particular. I don't know if the kids now see a whole lot of TV fuzz with the pixelated and the gray stuff when maybe the satellite goes out and it kind of just makes that crunching noise. That's kind of what I feel is pretty much, if you allow it, always going on in your mind. You're thinking about your training, your practice, maybe your family, maybe school, maybe social life, all those things. And the huge challenge is to be able to, because we practice, we have practice during the week, we have competitions, we have training for our bodies. It's just as important to do the same with your mind and develop mental strategies and mental techniques in order to weed out that fuzz and be able to focus, concentrate, and maintain confidence in that one thing, in that race at a time, one race at a time. Because you see a lot when kids have, or anybody has several events in one day, sometimes you'll be talking to an athlete before and you want to talk to them about, okay, prior to this race, and they're talking about a race later on in the day. I'm like, whoa, wait. They have to stop and focus on that one thing and not think, you're already thinking past it. Yeah. And so it's just kind of being disciplined with and practicing. It's not something that comes to people very easy, is being able to weed out other thoughts. Like I remember when I was swimming, sometimes I would and this sounds kind of crazy, but study for school, I'd study for a test in my head while in practice. Well, if half my mind is studying for a test and half my mind is doing this practice, I'm really not giving full benefit or full effort to either of those.
Yeah.
It's maintaining that focus and constantly challenging yourself mentally to push that boundary, to create a routine for you and figure out what's going to motivate you. And what Renzo was saying earlier about you really, with visualization, it's about feeling, it's about hearing, it's about seeing, it's all those different things. And psychologically speaking, the more sensations that you can add to imagery, to mental imagery, the more successful you're going to be at developing those successful strategies and techniques.
Yeah, I like it. Renzo, in terms of strategies and techniques, what ways, how do you do your visualization? Like, talk to the kids who are watching now. How do you actually do your visualization? What state are you in? Where are you? What are you doing when you're doing it?
So you can do visualizations at any time of the day. You can either do it right before when I started off doing it, I used to do it either right before practice and kind of see myself swimming either in a perfect way, or the way my idols are swimming, or things like that, or before bed. And it's just seeing it all with your eyes closed and even with your eyes open. You can do it at any time of the day. It's really hard for me to pinpoint and tell you how to do this. This is visualization is something that's very personal, and you're the only one that knows what goes on in your head and what you can see with your eyes closed. I know for me, just being very, as Hannah said, very mindful of the small things, right? And visualization in my head circles back to practice, even almost just seeing that one thing, or that one end goal, or even the process of it, or that mountaintop you want to reach over and over and over and over again. So that's kind of.
Well, you just said something interesting there, Renzo, that we hadn't heard yet, but I think is very important. You said eyes closed. Why is eyes closed important when you're doing visualization?
because with your eyes closed, you go into a sense of solitude, right? It's kind of like being quarantined, and the only way to either see something or vividly imagine something is to make your own movie in your head, almost, right? And that's kind of the beauty of it. In your mind, you can do anything, right? You can accomplish anything, and that's where it starts.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's go to the I think this is the last slide. Maybe not. We might have.
Yeah, that's pretty much the last slide. It's basically, y'all have touched on it before. Quarantine, it doesn't have to be a limitation. It's a good time to start working on, because a lot of us are not maybe able to access pools and things right now, but your mind's always there, and your mind can always use cultivating and using techniques, because oftentimes with like right now with quarantine, people are feeling pretty anxious or pretty stressed or frustrated even. And those are the same type of feelings that you're going to get when you are nervous for a race or nervous for a competition. And so even though we're not maybe able to access a pool right now, that doesn't mean that you can't work on your mental strategies in order to overcome obstacle, because it is very, very rare when you go into a race and everything before, during, after was just absolutely perfect. It's not very common for that to happen. And so you have to be able to be challenged and do well in that race, do well in that competition, despite the pressure, despite maybe a mishap. Maybe you didn't sleep that good the night before. Maybe your goggles snapped and you had to hurry and get some more. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but you got to be able to test yourself and overcome obstacle and still maintaining the confidence. So that's what y'all can still work on, what all of us can work on now.
Yeah. Renzo, have you felt any frustration during this time of isolation and, containment?
Certainly. Frustration, anger, confusion, a lot of different things, because for me, I was entering, I would say my prime. I wouldn't even say my prime, but entering one of the best shapes I've ever been in my life. And I had put in, months of work, invested a lot into, my training, my living situation. I had moved down to train with Bruno, and that in an instant, for it to be quote unquote, taken away from me, obviously was, is a pretty rough adjustment, I'd say. But something that is important for everyone to know is that, practice is like every practice you've done is what I think maybe Tyler McGill told me this once, or maybe Sergio Lopez that told me it's like bringing money to the bank, right? And once it's deposited into your bank account, that money doesn't go anywhere. It sits there, or into a savings account. And you, especially in this time where, a lot of us are going into bad habits of either eating too much or not even having the opportunity to work out as much. It's very important to circle back to, still maintaining those good habits and trusting that once you get to that end, once you get to the end of the year or to the end of the season, because this too shall pass, this whole COVID-19 situation, whether it is, next month, next year, in 2 years, we don't know. We don't really know where it is.
Don't say that, Renzo. Don't say 2 years.
No, it's like no.
Right. But anyway, it's still the practice and all the work you've put in. You won't lose it.
Yeah.
Right. It's that is deposited into the bank, and you just need to know it is still there.
I like that. I like that a lot. Good stuff. All right, we're going to finish here. We're going to enable the chat. So if anybody has some questions for Hannah or Renzo, let's have a look at that. I might give a few shout outs. Chris Ray, shout out to Chris. Anna Rosenbaum, shout out. Let's let them catch up. Hayden Tedhams. Okay, what else have we got here? We got some questions. All right. All right. What else? Questions here. Give us some questions. Avery, I see Avery's always on these. Thanks for coming back, Avery. Jesse's on here a lot too. Okay. Let's go with some. If you guys see a question, just start answering one if you see one.
So it's a lot of thank yous.
Oh, yeah. That's very sweet.
Yeah, thank you.
How do we find out what our why is? So why you why you compete, or why you have chosen the sport, or why there's a lot of whys, but
yeah, I guess quarantine helps you find out your why. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You either love it or you don't. And right now, I think we all miss it. I don't swim, but I miss swimming right now. And I know Renzo does this for a living, so I know he's desperate to get back in the pool. So we all have that. Renzo, how do you stay motivated to reach your goals?
So, Brett, do you remember a couple of years ago you brought in someone from, I think it's the Queen's Academy of Sport or something, or from the Australian Swimming Federation to come talk to us?
Yeah, sure. Stefan Widmer?
That might be his name. Yeah.
Stefan, yeah.
He actually said one of the most important things I had heard during my time at Auburn, and that was that motivation is fake, right? He told me his athletes aren't overly motivated to come to practice or to do these small tasks over and over again. It's just what they do. What they do have is that they are very inspired to accomplish something, right? And that's motivation. It's kind of a day-to-day thing, right?
Yeah.
One day you wake up very motivated, the other day you wake up a little sad or anything like that. So he told me motivation is fake.
Yeah.
You can take that with a grain of salt, obviously, at from a younger age, but you need to move. I've moved past motivation. For me, it's more of I'm committed to seeing this through all the way to the end.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how I'm going to do that under this situation with this whole COVID-19 thing, and a lot of us not having access to pools or things like that. But I do know at the end of the day, once the Olympics are going to be held, I'm going to be there behind the block, and I'm going to have a lane. And I need to prepare myself as good as I can, whether I'm motivated or not, right? I know that I'm going to be there. So I've moved past that point of motivation, because that to me is not something I can use for my day-to-day. I just wake up committed to seeing these small, minute goals, whether it be eating well, sleeping well, committing to a certain type of daily structure, whether it's starting off my day with some push-ups, a shake or something like that, drinking enough water. It ranges from a lot of things, but setting, what I had before this was a lot of structure in my life, right? Because I needed to wake up every morning, practice through the 2 to 3 hours, come back to the gym. It was a lot of structure from the beginning to the end. And now that I have all this free time, you need to build that or build a structure that either mirrors what you had before this, and whether that be with your home workouts, or maybe studying a bit more, or just researching, practicing those mental exercises that will help you succeed throughout your career, from the grassroots down. So good
stuff. Well, listen, appreciate everybody being on here. Hope Sava, special shout out for your birthday today. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes. Hannah, we're very appreciative of the slideshow presentation you put together for us. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Renzo, thank you for coming to us from Suriname today.
Yours truly.
So we got some new fans of Renzo out in Suriname, so make sure you do your homework on where Suriname is and the gross domestic product. We will gold, yeah, pure gold, baby. All right, listen, we thank everybody for being here. It was a great topic today, and we've got many more discussions coming throughout this week. So I want to thank our special guest today, and everybody stay safe. We'll see you back here tomorrow, okay?
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for having me, Brett.
Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Brett. Bye.
Bye.